Hello, everyone. I think we're going to wait just maybe a couple of minutes before we
Yes,
get started, just to make sure that we have our crowd coming in. We won't wait too long, though, because we have a presentation that is full, chocked full of good stuff. Right, Pam?
absolutely. I can't wait for this one. I have seen the slides, everybody, so I'm just a little excited. I get sneak previews all the time.
Well, that's because you are the AI guru, and we are talking AI, which is always a fun topic. And
Absolutely.
we will be talking about some serious things, but we will also talk about some of the fun of AI and how we can help our teams. And so I'm really excited about this topic, seeing that we have this conversation all the time, right, with our clients and people in and out of the multifamily industry. It is really the topic. And how do you decipher the actual signal for all of the noise that surrounds it? So, yes, it is a good topic and a timely one, I think.
I agree. And the nice thing is that if anybody needs help with this, that's what we're here for. So it works out well.
It really does. It really, really does. All right. In keeping with always being on time or trying to be, because if you're on time, you're late, right? Isn't that the
Absolutely.
saying?
That's my motto.
Yeah. I am going to go ahead and get started.
Mhm.
Well, welcome everyone to Leading Through the Noise, the real world change management in the age of AI and endless integrations, which is our topic for today, brought on by a lot of need, a lot of conversation, a lot of noise around AI in general. But before I get into why we're here and what we're going to be talking about, I would love to introduce my counterpart in crime, Pam Peterson. Say hello, Pam.
Hello, Pam, and everyone out there. It's good to see everybody.
Thanks, Pam. Pam's going to be behind the scenes, running our polls and making sure that we are technically on target. But she does so much more than that. Not only is she a part of Here to Elevate as our chief narrative architect and so much more, AI guru and marketing professional, she also owns her own business, Enthusiastically Consulting. And so she's a great resource. If you don't know Pam, which would be really hard to believe, you'll want to reach out to her, Pam Peterson. She's a plethora of knowledge and would love to talk to you. And so, why are we here today? I've been thinking a lot about this topic. I have spoken on it before in different forums and in different, um, methods, either online or in person at conferences. And it's always this question of, you know, am I going to talk about this in a milk toast way, or am I actually really going to get into the real nitty gritty of it? And a lot of times, the soft, approachable presentation is great. There's nothing against that, but there's a lot going on with AI that it goes much deeper, and it's been painful. It's been painful for me. It's been painful for a lot of people. It's been interesting, and of course, curiosity. I love learning new things, but there's a lot of it. There's a lot of it, and it's affecting the people that we lead. So again, it's not really about, innovation and digital transformation. Those words are almost getting old. It's really about the problems that we're trying to solve with automation and with AI and the effect that it's having on our human capital. And the real issue, again, is not whether or not AI actually works, it's whether our people will. Because let's just be honest, technology isn't really the roadblock in business right now. Changes. And change can be really difficult. So we're gonna zero in on change and really talk about how to manage that in this new world. We've got amazing operators out there in business. They are possessing incredible instincts, but they're tired. They're managing 12 different systems, and that's really, at the low end. Some of our clients are managing 40 plus systems in their tech stack, and they don't talk to each other. they're responding to our customer that is expecting, Amazon level service. And somehow we want our people to just embrace a chat bot that sounds like HAL 9000. And if you don't know who HAL 9000 is, we can talk afterwards. But again, today isn't going to be about another AI trend talk. There's a million of those out there. It's going to be about something much harder and more important. It's about how we lead our teams through this change, how we take the fear out of automation and replace it with trust and efficiency and time back in the day because AI isn't coming for business, work, and life. It's already here. And the question isn't if we'll use it, it's how fast we're able to help our people use it and see that it's not replacing them. It's releasing them from the manual and the repetitive soul sucking work, as I call it, that keeps them from actually serving their customer and growing their business. So if you're here for a safe conversation, I'm sorry to disappoint you because we're not going to have that today. But if you came to figure out, how to make AI a real part of your operations, then you're in the exact right room. All right, but first, a little introduction about who I am. I'm Suzanne Hobson. I am the CEO and founder of Here to Elevate, and I'd like to just share a little bit about my journey and what drives me and why I'm presenting this today. I come from a multifamily real estate background. I've been in that vertical for several decades, and I've had the privilege of leading operations, growth, and culture. And it's an industry that's very close to my heart. And now, as founder and CEO of Here to Elevate, I get to work with leaders across various sectors, including multifamily and scaling organizations effectively. Even though we may not work in the same verticals, we all are dealing and grappling with this rapid change and the effect that it's having on our business. And so, the essence of what I do and what my team does is help businesses find operational clarity and align leadership and implement systems that actually work. And so, whether it's coaching the C suite team or integrating AI powered tools, my passion is to guide organizations through change and elevate their potential. And we can't do this without the team. So there is a Here to Elevate team, and you can see their faces here and check out more about each one of them on our website. But again, we don't do these big things alone. What makes H2E, as we call it, unique is the team of experts that we have that have decades of experience in several industries. And they are able to come into an organization and apply that expertise from marketing, IT. We have COOs, CEOs, CMOs, you name it. We're here to be able to plug into businesses fractionally or in a business advisory and coaching uh, capacity to really help stay on track and be able to grow and scale in this competitive environment. So, this background and all of what we've talked about in the first few minutes here is really to set the stage for today's discussion. And we'll again explore practical strategies for leading through rapid change, especially when faced with the tech transitions and the integration challenges that we are all facing daily. So let's dive into how we can navigate the noise and focus on what really matters. But first, let's do a poll.
Yes, we should. It's
Yeah.
that crazy voice in the background. All right. You should see on your screen what percentage of your team is feeling the strain of strange. We could say that, the strain of technology right now. We are struggling. We are feeling the strain. We are sailing. What's AI? And I've seen that answer quite a bit.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And 70 to 100%, are we struggling, right? Like,
Yeah,
is
for
that how
sure.
we're feeling? And Are we feeling the strain, but starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel? Or are we sailing? We're just having a really great sense of what's happening. No problem. It would be really interesting to get the feel from the crowd on this call to see where they're falling in that for sure.
So everybody, it seems, Suzanne, are in the one without the percentages, which I think, Zoom decided it wasn't important to have those numbers on the front. But that was the 40 to 69% range. They are feeling the strain, but you're working through it. So I think that's great, and you're in the right place.
Yeah, for sure. And that strain is palpable, right? It's we can feel it in the air. And again, it does no surprises. That doesn't surprise me at all. So, all right, well, let's get cracking. So, the goal obviously today is to really equip leaders on this call and whoever you may bring this information back to with practical strategies to lead through the rapid change when tech transitions and AI adoption and really that integration overload causes the confusion and the burnout. Our primary goal is to arm you with an actionable strategy and strategies because there's several ways to approach this issue and to navigate through that rapid change. So, as leaders, you're facing those tech transitions, AI adoptions, integrations, and this can lead to that confusion and burnout that I mentioned before. And so, how do we really explore together and distinguish the valuable signals from the overwhelming noise that surrounds those? And really, the level to which you can hear the signal in all of the noise is the level of efficiency and effectiveness and success that you're going to have. And so how do you really tune in and be able to hear that with clarity and with focus? And so we're going to give you some tools to be able to do that. You can't really do that without them. Otherwise, you're just sort of floating out there and you're suffering. So hopefully we can relieve the pain. I love this picture. Hopefully, you can relate. I have had this situation happen recently with my tween age daughter in her closet. But what it really does is it made me feel when I saw it the pile up of all of the tech that we have in our world. And it is like a mess when you go to find a tool in your toolbox or that outfit in your closet. It's really hard to find the right one that fits. And so I want to talk about a specific, example. And it's, of course, I've changed the name of this business to Protect the Innocent, but this is an actual example of operational chaos and some of the effects of that through survey and response from teams. And so this is a property management company, Harmony Homes, really ambitious prop tech upgrade, property technological upgrade, starting with enthusiasm, but really turning into operational chaos. Their leadership, they implemented 12 new property technologies in 18 months. And even though some of them were integrated or of the same brand, they were all different functions. And so 12 of them in 18 months. And many companies are doing more than that. So creating just really a tangible and tangled web of disconnected systems and without really clear strategic oversight. And the warning signs obviously are 85% of the site team reporting that they're overwhelmed from notifications alone of these multiple platforms. Just imagine that noise of all of the technology that's affecting our frontline teams with notifications alone. And they can't turn off the notifications like some of us can, right? They have to hear those because those are signals in their work environment that they have to take care of their customer. And it's no surprise that the average adoption rate of new prop tech tools fell below 30%, and that the unofficial prop tech support for leasing and maintenance teams has fallen on those managers that are actually learning and doing the work. So not only are they learning the systems, but they're now they're the go-to people for their teams. They're the experts. And so they have to handle all of that influx as well. Most of the time, because there hasn't been the backup plan, the training program in place, or the go-to is not clear. And so that manager, that direct manager is getting hit and inundated with, pretty complex questions that shouldn't really be addressed by them directly. And really, the breaking point is when new AI powered tools and support tools for our customer are introduced without the proper change management. That term again, people resigned. People resigned from this team and they cited technological overload as the exact reason. So it wasn't a hidden reason. They came right out and said that it was directly related to technology. And also, along with that, they also stated that unclear expectations were also prevalent in their reasoning for leaving. And so the clarity that's required for people to be able to adopt this rapid change is missing. And I'm sure that people can relate to this. I know that it misses in my world every day. It misses in my family's world, in schools. There's not a lot of clarity about how to do this and what the expectations of using these tools is in our environment. So, what's really driving this operational disarray? And again, this is sometimes how I feel when I'm trying to find something in the grocery store. But anyway, why is this happening at all? Why is this even an issue for us? What's really driving it? And let's just delve into some of the challenges that everyone is feeling. A couple of these are up on the screen, obviously, but we have this decision fatigue, and what is that? It's just this stemming of fatigue from the rapid proliferation of tech tools. And thinking about that, I don't know about you, but it slows me down to the point where I really don't know what the next best choice is. And so decision making becomes even more difficult with all of the information that we're consuming. It's a tremendous amount because everything is sped up and we are moving faster and faster, which means the amount of information that's coming at us to consume, it causes us actual fatigue. And we can feel that physically and mentally. And again, with so many options, it can really become overwhelming. And, how do we really decide which tools to adopt and how best to use them? Are we going to use them to their full capacity? And this can lead to indecision and inefficiency. So each new integration adds a complexity exponentially, not really linearly, which I think, when we talk about linearly, we talk about the straight line of integration and thinking that we are implementing and integrating tech, you know, right alongside each other, one thing at a time, when in actuality, as we add on complexity to our tech stack, that multiplies exponentially every time we add a new feature, add a new layer to that. So that multiplication of information is another contributing factor to, all of the things in blue here. So fatigue, anxiety, and obviously the mixed messages that come from our leadership because we cannot make the decisions about the next steps that we need to take. And so there's a real anxiety associated with operating in an AI driven environment. And this anxiety often arises from fears about job security. That's a lot of the conversation today. And fears about the pace of technological change. Will I be able to keep up? That is something that I hear a lot and ask myself from time to time. Am I really going to be able to keep up? And even though it's fun and I really enjoy it, will I be able to keep up with this pace? And so it's really important for everyone to feel secure and informed about how AI can be an ally rather than a threat. And not only do we have frightened teams and a workforce, but we also have pressure to implement tools that, while great, are not really fully understood yet. And so that causes hesitation at the highest levels. It's in the news. Every time I turn on the news, I'm seeing, we'll take Claude as an example. It's the one that's been the highlight, as of late, but it'll be another one next week. It is literally, a fear that because we don't understand the technology, we can't control it, and that means we can't plan and strategize with it. So again, all of this, and not to be, doom and gloom, but understanding the effect and really understanding how it's impacting us as leaders and our teams as well is the first step in really being able to address it properly. And so again, we face leadership gaps that create those mixed messages within organizations. And when leaders are not aligned, or clear in their communication, it can lead to confusion, misdirection for everyone that's involved. And we know what happens with that. That affects morale. That affects, people wanting to stay. Our turnover goes up, or we're just not winning. Like the execution doesn't happen, and our businesses suffer on the bottom line. So, how can we really better support our teams through these challenges and create more of a cohesive and effective environment? That's really the question and why we're here. And often, the deeper organizational challenge that's masked by this is specific to our industry, and that's got to be addressed before any technological solution is going to succeed. We have to address why it's not getting in and how to get it in better. Otherwise, these great tools are not going to work and continue to not work to our benefit. So operationally, these teams tech load, overload and burnout. One person that I had spoken to had noted that the overwhelming number of systems and tools creates so much complexity for the site teams that they don't even know how to use it properly. And automation, as relief, yes, everybody has a consensus that AI should enhance and not replace human roles. And really, how can we automate the routine tasks to preserve more time for resident engagement and for customer engagement? And so the customer pressures like instant everything and luxury properties using AI, just all of the trends and the pace setters, the customer that sees these tools and experiences these tools in other areas of their lives, they expect that now in all of the functions, like all of the things that they do. And we talked about this with that whole instant gratification with Amazon. Think about that now and how much faster that is even going to be, because we can get an answer to something really fast, or we can complete a task much faster than we could before. And so if something goes slower, like maybe the expectation is that the speed goes up and we can't deliver that quickly, that's going to cause a dissatisfied customer. And so now we're challenged with, the beauty of AI in speeding and speeding up and causing us to have more efficiency, but it's also going to put a lot of pressure on us to make sure that we can keep that up and keep that going to the level that our customer expects. So those are the market pressures that play on us too. And, external, the scrutiny and the trust, all of that has happened with algorithms and how we've utilized that in pricing, and the legal scrutiny that I just talked about for potentially enabling some of this technology to do things that are not quite understood yet. All of this just adds to the dimension of operational pressure for our business owners and our leaders, where, how do we navigate it? How do we figure this out? What's the right move? What's the lowest risk but the highest, return? All of these questions that we're grappling with. So, how do we stop doing what we've always done? One of my favorite Einstein sayings, and produce a different result, because that's really what we're going for. We want to make sure that we're approaching this problem differently than maybe we had even last week. How do we really move quickly to adapt? And so we're really at a critical juncture. The familiar approaches that we've utilized in the past might have served us well then, but to achieve these different results, we're going to have to be willing to change our methods. And this means we're going to have to change the cycle and really recognize that repeating the same strategies it's not going to work. So just think about this if you can. What if we stopped merely reacting and started proactively redefining our path? And the idea here is to challenge ourselves to embrace the change and innovation in our operations and really rise to the challenge because this is just a challenge that we have to face. And as we move forward, we're going to explore how a clear vision, that clarity that we talked about before, can really empower our people to set the stage for selecting and implementing the right tools for the business. Oftentimes I've talked to people in small circles about the fact that the other challenge is using tools that make sense, like making it simple and connected to our customer. And oftentimes we are very much focused on tools that will help us to be more efficient internally in the business. And yet externally, the customer is not receiving the benefit of that. So really prioritizing what's important and making sure that we're looking at it as a business strategy and not just another layer of system to put on top of our already clogged cogs. So, and today we're talking about, that transforming approach. I like to look at these in very simplistic terms because when we're talking about complex issues, simplicity really helps. And so vision, people, execution, these are the three components of a business, and they have varying levels of complexity, of course. But if we start with vision and you think about your North Star, bright, clear, it guides every decision. This vision sets the stage for alignment and directs the change that we want to see. And again, vision and clarity of that vision is really important. Always ask this question. If I were to go anywhere in my organization and ask that person what the North Star is in their organization as it relates to technology, would they be able to tell you? Or that North Star as the customer is our prime focus. Whatever that North Star is it clear? And can your people recite it? Do they really know what it is? The people, obviously, I want to discuss next. And we need to be able to empower our teams. And what does that mean? It means building skills and confidence, which means they have to use the tools. There's a lot of confusion right now about, compliance and the legal ramifications of allowing free use of AI in the workplace. And so, how do you really have a controlled environment, but encourage people to be curious and to solve problems with these tools? That's what makes them want to use them. If it makes their life easier, they will use it. They don't understand it and they haven't been shown and they haven't been taught or trained, they're not going to have the confidence to continue using the tool or learning more about it. And it's about creating that culture where embracing and adopting new ways of doing things is encouraged. So if you don't have a culture like that, it's going to put you behind. You have to look at how people can operate in your ecosystem to be successful. And if they're too locked down, that's going to be a problem. You want them to have think tanks. You want them to be able to practice using these tools without fear. And yes, there are some unknowns. How do we learn and how do we figure out the next best way if we don't push the envelope, if we don't push the limits? And so, yes, we have to be controlled in those limits. Yes, we have to always weigh risk. But if we lock everything down and we don't explore this, we're going to be left behind. And that's our role as leaders and owners of companies, that we allow this to happen and that we encourage it and that we ask people, have they ran it through chat? Do they understand how to prompt and use it properly to get really great solutions out of it? Do they know how to double check it and make sure that the information that they've gotten from it is accurate? All of these things have to be brought out into the open and worked on and be part of the curriculum of training and education. Finally, we come to execution, which is, quite frankly, where a lot falls short. You might have wonderful vision and you might have the best people in the best possible seats in your organization. But if they're not executing, then there's an issue. And you need to find out what that is. Again, choosing the right tools is really important, and remembering that, technology is here to solve problems, not create more of them. If you really look at where the issues are in your organization today, how many of them are related to software or other tools that you're using that aren't working right, that you have to go in and fix, or that you don't really understand, or your people don't really understand? So that complexity becomes landmines from your team and from your business getting to the best possible outcomes. The other thing that, I think we forget is, how do we measure this success, and how do we really know whether or not we are being successful with the tools that we use? And so the measurement of that and making sure that there's some tracking involved of, where did we start and what was the sentiment of our customer and our internal folks at that moment? And then how's it going? How are people feeling as we go through a transition or an implementation? Taking the pulse of our customer and our internal teams is critical for being able to pivot, which I know is a favorite word, but I really don't know of a better word to talk about how to change quickly, being agile, being able to move in a different direction based on feedback. So organizations that reverse that pyramid of feedback and data flow, and really looking at, quite honestly, how we implement technology, you have to have your vision and your systems and your people in place before you layer in the tech. It's not the other way around. So, for organizations that are still providing tools to solve the issues, I would ask you to step back for a moment and really look at process, really look at it from the customer's perspective, both internal and external, and then layer in the tools that accommodate and make that a faster, more innovative, and creative way of operating. That's in the best interest of your customers. It's not, okay, here's our technology, and here we need to fit all of this into it. Because that's where we get frustrated. That is where the freedom and the ability to be agile and change directions becomes muddled. All right. So on top of that, in just furthering along that thought, clear ownership, part of that structure of making sure that people know what they're responsible for and what they own, that's critical in anything that we do. But especially when we're talking about workflows and decision rights and how all of that again gets measured. The critical shift we need is precision, and it's, again, technology really needs to solve for specific business needs. And for each tool, let's really work on identifying the problem that it solves and how it's going to make a measurable difference to the business. It's a great question that I ask executives and the people that I coach all the time. And that is, okay, this is a great idea. Tell me how it immediately impacts the business and how this will benefit us if we're to move forward with it. There's so many shiny pennies out there. I am a victim of the shiny penny syndrome. I love new technology and seeing what it does and what it can do, but it can be a distraction. And that's really the noise, really brings back that word to my mind of, now I can't hear the signal. I can't really hear what I'm supposed to be hearing for in really solving the day-to-day business problems that are going to move the business forward. So I call it shiny penny syndrome. We all have a word for it, but it can be very distracting. I love this. Technology is a multiplier, not a foundation. Build on vision, build on people, build on systems. Then let the technology amplify what you've already made strong by doing all of those things. It is a quote. I wrote it, but I probably heard it from a lot of other people. It just resonates that it comes last. The technology is it's the multiplier. It is the accelerator. It is not the beginning part of solving business problems. All right, I think we're
Yes.
up for another poll, Pam.
Yes, your shiny penny is my squirrel, but it happens to all of us, right?
I use the squirrel too. Yes, yes, indeed. Yes.
Oh, goodness. Well, Suzanne has been talking about those three disciplines. So, where do you believe your company is strongly winning on the vision, the people, or the execution?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it could be all three. And that's okay. That's okay. Again, it's knowing where you are and being really honest and realistic about that that will set
Yep.
you up for the right way to move forward.
Well, they answered my favorite, which is people. So, I think people understand that when you take care of your team, you take care of almost everything. So, that kind of goes in alignment with everything you've been talking about.
Sure does. And again, you really you have to have all three of these ingredients, but without people, and again, that's probably a whole nother webinar. In fact, I think we've done it
I think we have.
and several different ways. Yeah, they are the essence of what makes it all happen. And sometimes they're the last people we're asking on whether or not that tool is going to work. All right. So reframing change, the vision, people, execution, hierarchy, as I call it. And it's really the chicken or the egg or AI, what came first? And I think we've answered that question over the last couple of minutes in the ideal, which is making sure that your technology and artificial intelligence is the tool that just accelerates what you've already worked on. And if you do have issues with your systems and your processes and your people and your vision, those have to be fixed first. Otherwise, you're just putting a band-aid on something that will fester again, right? All right, so we've got a lot on this slide, but this is really, some different sectors that are, working in the field and having some success. And so, there are some real success stories of organizations that have effectively navigated digital transformation. But here's the thing, there's going to be another challenge tomorrow. So, is it the organization or the industry, or is it the organization and the culture itself, right? Financial service leader who created integration councils to reduce tech overlap and accelerate AI adoption. What a brilliant idea, to actually have an integration team that can really help to keep track of the tech overlap. When we own a particular part of the process, sometimes we miss the other parts of the process that are really integral to making sure that it is delivered and executed correctly. So if you have an integration council, you're all talking, you're all looking at the roadmap of this technology and how it all weaves together. And you can eliminate a lot of that overlap that happens with technology. I can think of an example, a real world, real life example that we're all probably grappling with, which is note taker versus calendar organizer versus let's see, what else do we have? A million other things. There's in a million different providers, and they all have like similar products, and then they have the one distinct different product that we want. Meanwhile, we've now signed up with four, subscriptions, and we really only needed two of those tools. And so it can cause a lot of cost. And so having a council or a committee that can do this, of course, that's larger scale, obviously, in larger organizations, but even on a smaller team could be really, really helpful to keep it all together. Healthcare, they have this Tech Free Tuesday. Some people in multifamily have done that. They've adopted a day where they really pause and they look and assess at the changes that they've made in their organization regarding the technology. And they say, is it working? Let's get some feedback. And it's like a feedback day where they're collecting that data from end users and saying what's working, what's not working. Imagine doing that during a major implementation where you're taking a day out of every week to take a pulse. I don't know about you, but I've been on plenty of implementations where we started, we went 6 months. At the end, we said, hey, what's working? What's not working? And we were already all the way in. And trying to move around and make changes after that were it was very difficult. And our people were totally not bought in. They were like, oh, yeah, 30%, 40% adoption of tools. That's not what we're aiming for, right? So again, looking at the support tickets, what's coming in, the feedback, the surveys, really trying to look at employee sentiment as you're going along, not at the beginning, middle, and end, but all along the way. Manufacturing firm, another example that I read about that assigned translation officers to bridge technical and operational teams, ensuring AI solutions solve workflow problems. So again, you have sometimes high level technological speak that your end user doesn't understand. There's a lot. I was just telling Pam the other day, I was sitting on a round table and I felt like not very smart at this table, probably not necessary for me to be, battling it with the Google and Microsoft people. But I will say, I didn't understand what they were talking about to a large extent on some of the newer stuff that they were discussing. And that happens at all levels of organizations. And so, how do you really, develop and implement these translation officers so that it's clear and that your tech side is getting real feedback about workflow? That data is getting sent back up to the people that are designing these products. Again, I think we're getting better at that, but there are some industries that are not great at it. And what happens is they don't solve for the problem, and you either move on and you choose something else, or you just have low adoption, which means people can't justify or find the value in the cost that they're paying. So again, this slide also outlines some key tools that we can use to really build clarity, including the RACI model, one of my favorites. It's an oldie but goodie that really helps to define ownership of certain tasks and workflows. And like who owns what? Always the question of at the end of the day, who's responsible? And also, decision journals. It's a great idea to document the why behind the tech choices because, we do have turnover. It's a real thing. So, how do we guarantee that the story is intact and can be absorbed by another team at another time? There's nothing worse than coming into an organization and trying to figure out what's been done already so that you don't do it again. Or what have been some of the successful implementations? What was the thought process behind that? Knowing that speeds things up. And this is really about speed. If we're talking about that one word, we want to be able to increase that speed. And this definitely contributes to that. So again, that's another tool. The integration maps, this is an oldie but goodie. Again, just really looking at in a visual format how all of the technology integrates in the organization and being able to look at that readily. Oftentimes with clients that I deal with, and Pam, you're probably the same, there's really no one that owns that tech stack. It's just a multitude of people that own the particular technology that affects their department. And so, who really owns the roadmap? And can you see it? Like, is it a visual that you can actually look at and see? Oftentimes, businesses do not know how much technology they are using. Department A over here might have implemented something that no one else knows about. So, how do you really centralize how you look at your tech stack so that not only can you control it, but you can see all of the integration, overlap, waste, or success that all of that technology is having? Communication based on the audience is also really critical. I alluded to that a little bit earlier, but the language. You need to speak the language of the people that are using this technology. You're going to have a better success rate. And you need them to understand. You want them to understand. So are you speaking the language where it matters to them? And that really means understanding their problems and providing the solutions that they can understand, so that they'll implement it and they'll use the tools. I gave an example of the RACI roles and responsibilities template. This is something you can find online. It is not an invention by any means. If you haven't heard of it, you can very much just go up and Google RACI and you'll find all kinds of great information, or use one of your AI tools. But it's a basic of who owns what and provides a lot of clarity on project management. And project management is key. Your ability to be able to do it well when implementing technology will be a measurement of your success for sure. So again, RACI model example. And let's see here. This is an interactive exercise that you could do on your own. And I call it the blind spot reveal. And you probably have done something very similar to this, but it's really, and we're not going to take 10 minutes to do it now, but it's really about how to map your current technological landscape and identify the hidden gaps that could be creating friction in the organization. And so you're really mapping out who actually owns each technology decision, not who's supposed to on paper, including, your informal go-to people that you would like your subject matter experts or people who've become default support, right? Because support, again, is who can do it, who can give the answer. And sometimes that becomes unclear. And for each major system, note who selected it, who picked it out, who maintains it, who trains on it, and who measures its success. All of that is really important to making sure that we understand the gaps and some of the friction points. And, you know, highlight the tasks that fall in between the roles that everyone assumes someone else is handling. These ghosts, as I call them, often cause the most significant implementation failures. So going through this exercise and really mapping out who owns it. Uh, Again, I said it before, I say it several times because that clarity really helps to get to the bottom of some of that overlap and confusion and really just lack of execution. That's really where it's at. All right. This is a very familiar slide to many of you. Again, Kubler-Ross, not my invention. But this is about, change initiatives and why they stall. So again, very familiar graph on change and how it affects the human. And the Kubler-Ross change curve, originally conceived as a grief model, right? And it's been widely adapted in change management to map emotion over time from denial to acceptance. And in organizational settings, it helps change leaders to really anticipate resistance, tailor their communications, and design interventions that meet individuals where they actually are. In 2025, accelerated disruption, AI adoption continues on into 2026, full speed ahead. And this continuous transformation that's raising the stakes for, managing change well. According to a report, the rate of change impacting businesses has increased by 183% in the last year. And over the past 4 years, 52% of C suite leaders admit that they are not fully prepared for this accelerated pace. That is alarming, right? So we need to really effectively look at change management. Again, it's an old term, but it has really come back full force. I'm hearing people talk about it all the time. All right, I think we're ready for another poll, Pam.
That's where I come in. So I'm going to launch. And based on the magnificent views that Suzanne has just laid in front of us, what phase are you in as a company? The resistance phase or the acceptance phase, or personally, if you are
Yeah.
like me and you are the company. So
Yeah.
any answers appreciated? Yes, everybody's in the acceptance phase. We'd love to hear that because that resistance phase is tough and hard to get over. So good job.
Yeah, and it is good to know and good to also be honest about that, right? Like, is there any part of you
Absolutely.
that is resistant to all of the change? And are those things legit? I always tell people what you feel is always legitimate. Can it be overcome? And is that, what you really want to do? So it's okay to be resistant sometimes. It's just how do you get past it and move on, right? Because those are the things that get us stuck. All right, so the five takeaways that we could take for immediate action when we return to our businesses, our homes. What are those things to immediately take action on and drive a successful digital transformation or adoption of technology? And again, I think first, it's really all about clearly defining the specific business problem that we are trying to solve for. What is that business problem? Also, what is the desired outcome? What does the end game look like? A lot of times we start out on the journey and we don't need to know exactly 100% what the end game looks like, but it sure helps with planning if you have the end game identified, the ultimate goal, the sweet system that your technology is going to produce and look like and feel like to your external and internal customers, because that is part of the vision. If you can identify what it looks like when it's all in, that is a very compelling story for your teams. And you of course have to build in the fact that there may be things that change. I mean, there's going to be a new technology that might come out that enhances or could disrupt what it is that you're trying to do as an organization. And so there has to be that component in it as well, that culture of change that you're creating, that adaptability, that ability to be agile, all of that. Again, it helps to create that vision so that people are following your North Star. They can see it, they can see the roadmap. And again, second, we have to really focus on measuring those outcomes. How do we know if we're moving in the right direction? And how are we going to measure that? Again, that could be a whole nother hour of conversation on employee sentiment, and there are experts at that outside of what we do, but it's important to know to do it. And again, focusing on those outcomes versus just the actions that you are accomplishing in your day to day or your quarter or your year. What are the outcomes that you're really trying to achieve, and replace those vague goals like improve efficiency with really concrete targets like reduce invoice processing time from 14 to 3 days by quarter three. Some people call those SMART goals. You can call them outcomes. If you have trouble defining what those things are, you can always reach out to us because we do this all day long. But it has to be clear, and improving efficiency is way too wide of a target for your teams to understand and grasp. So be specific in that. And then resist the temptation to really chase the latest shiny new tool, shiny penny effect, the squirrel effect, and implement a 30-day cooling period to evaluate existing solutions first. Before you go to the next great thing, take a look what you got, right? Like, let's really examine what is in your tech stack currently, what might be coming within that particular technology by meeting regularly with our partners, our technology partners, and making sure that we understand what they're working on, and how that's going to impact your organization next week, next month. Are you having regular conversations and really taking the time to stop in all of the noise and really listen for the signal that's going to move you in the right direction? And fourth, use AI to enhance and empower your best people. Ask your top performers what tasks they would eliminate to focus on higher value work. And that is really the challenge of thinking about this as taking care of those tasks that take a lot of time but won't change the world, right? So take a lot of time and, have little impact to the greater goal or the end game. So really taking a look at those higher level opportunities for our people to work on the bigger things. If you were to ask a frontline person, what they would rather be doing, let's just take some things of it's a customer service person that loves people and wants to help them find a new home. How much are they inundated with processing paperwork or qualifying applicants or following up and making sure that their residents are happy after they move in? You can replace the industry, replace the customer, replace the process, but are you really, helping them to do their best work, which is to really help the customer, right? And to do that quickly and to show that they care, that human effect. I probably should have been saying this through the whole thing, and hopefully you've heard it in what I've said, is the most important thing. That is the thing that will differentiate us from everyone else. And that is our ability to humanize what it is that we're doing. And so, how can we really create opportunities for our people to have that higher level work where they feel like they're really contributing and making a difference? Those are the people that are moving the mountains. So finally, lead with transparency and structured support, create visible change roadmaps so that people can see the picture. There's a lot of visual learners out there, and they really want to see what it looks like. And dedicate the time for teams to absorb the change. I know that it's always going to be a little uncomfortable, but you do need to consider in your timeline of implementation of the buffer effect. And that is just giving them a moment to absorb the information, ask the questions, to move through the change curve. You'll have better results if you do that. And remember that the most successful digital transformations are fundamentally human transformations. So even though there's all this noise going on in the world and we are being inundated daily with very big problems and issues, humans will stand up and they will do the right thing and we will progress. That is what we do. And so if we look at these digital transformations as, methods of moving forward as humans, it's a much more positive light and a positive way of looking at how we're going to use this moving forward in our lives and in our work. All right, well, we're just about at time, but I'll leave you with the last quote by McKinsey. The human side of digital transformation is often the hardest, but as we've been saying, it is the most important. And I'm just going to open the floor for any questions that might come in to our chat and see if anyone has any questions.
The one question that I had is if you don't centralize your tech stack, where should you start?
Yeah, so I think it really, and it's a great question, by the way. I think it matters of where your biggest pain point is in the business. Again, if you're solving from a place of pain and driving a solution, I would start there. Look at your biggest pain point and identify the technology around that pain point that you're utilizing today. I also think, that's for immediate gratification, as I would say. That's immediately to solve an issue. But if you don't have a centralized tech stack, I would, I would, I would try and develop in your own realm that map for your team so that you can at least see the technology that you're utilizing and how that may be overlapping or affecting, your team. Hopefully organizations, depending on their size, have someone that's leading the charge here. But maybe it's going to be you. Maybe you're the one who's going to stand up and say, look, we need to get control of this and this is where we're going to begin. But I always look at the pain points, whether it's the internal customer, external customer, where can we make the biggest impact? Where are we feeling the most pain? What are we using in terms of tools to help that along? And again, you gotta go backwards a little bit. Is it clear what we're trying to do? Do we have the systems and processes in place? Do we have the right people? Then we're looking at the technology. Hopefully that answers the question. But that's a common problem.
Yeah, that's all I have for questions.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Hopefully you found this helpful. If you want to talk to us and just have a conversation about AI, tech stacks, or anything else, you can reach out to us. You see our QR code here. You can also find us at heretoelevate.com. But thanks again, and we'll see you out there.
Bye, everybody.
Bye bye.